Welcome, everybody, to our first episode of Sean and Joe's Snow Search. We might change the name on that, but this is pretty much our mid-Atlantic winter discussion for not just the 7-day period, but what's happening beyond 7 days, 7 to 14 days out, even 3 weeks out. We're going to look at general trends. So we're not going to tell you that, hey, there's a big snowstorm on December the 9th, but we'll point out when the most opportune times for snow and cold will be if we get it throughout the winter. And again, it's hosted by Sean Sublette from the Richmond Times-Dispatch. I'm Joe Martucci at the Press of Atlantic City, and we're going to be doing this for all of you in North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, D.C., Pennsylvania, and New Jersey. So, Sean, I'm glad we're finally doing this.
Yeah, Joe, this has been a long time coming, something we've wanted to work on for a long time. And yeah, to emphasize, we can't say that 11 days from now there's going to be a big storm. But one of the things that the science has advanced enough as we can put together some pieces of the atmosphere that lend themselves a little more toward cold and snow versus mild and dry. So that's what we're kind of looking at. You know, the forecasting of the 6 to 7 days out, that's obviously very strong. But as we look to what we call week 2 and even the third week, that's when you start looking at these broader oscillations and circulations, and you're looking for little hints in the atmosphere, in the ocean patterns that might favor some snow. And that's what we're going to be looking at here over these next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and you say oscillation. Let's start with it. The one big one we're going to be talking about over the winter is the North Atlantic Oscillation, the NAO. Sean, tell us what the NAO is about.
Yeah, the North Atlantic Oscillation is basically a pattern in the jet stream that shifts from back and forth. When we're into the negative phase, we have more of a blocking area of high pressure over Greenland. What does that do? That forces cold air into the eastern part of North America. When that pattern breaks down, it's positive, and it ends up being a lot warmer here in the eastern United States. And this is good from Carolina all the way up really into New England. And the colder air is much farther northward into Greenland. I say cold relative to normal, and into eastern Canada. So when we're looking for snow, when we're looking for cold here in the eastern part of North America, we want to see a negative North Atlantic Oscillation, or NAO.
Yeah, and we'll be showing you forecasts of the NAO as we go forward in future episodes. But we just want to get the groundwork in on this episode here. Of course, we have to talk about the polar vortex, the ever-popular polar vortex. I'll take this one here. Yeah. The polar vortex, it's an upper-level area of low pressure, and it's always around during the winter. It's not like it just appears, but it's always around during the winter. What we could see in the Northeast and into the Mid-Atlantic and the South is the polar vortex dipping itself into this area here. So here's our main low pressure system. This is for December 5th. That bigger L that's over, Alaska in northern Canada. That's the main part of the polar vortex. But
and to remind people, we're looking top down on the Earth. This might be a view that they're not quite used to, but you can probably make out North America in the bottom central part of the screen. Go ahead, Joe.
No. Good point. So polar vortex, it spins like a top. So the faster it spins, the more it's going to stay at the North Pole. But when it slows down, that top slows down a little bit, it wobbles. And sometimes we get a stretched polar vortex event, which is kind of what this is suggesting on December the 5th, where, you still have that main core of the polar vortex, but a little piece doesn't break off, but kind of moves out a little bit and stretches down. Or we get a complete split of the polar vortex, and that could meander. So, again, what are we looking at here for December 5th? The polar vortex is stretching down from northern Canada to central Canada. Still has a ways to go before it gets to, our area that we're talking about. But there is potential for, let's say that December 6th to the 10th, even into the 12th time frame, for this polar vortex to dip on through here. So that's what we're talking about, the polar vortex. We also just want to talk about La Nina real quick. We are in a La Nina winter for the third winter in a row. Sean, does that mean anything for us?
I've seen a lot of talk about what this means, the triple dip La Nina. I haven't put an awful lot of stock in that in terms of what that means for having it third year in a row. But what the La Nina is a periodic cooling of the ocean temperatures in the Pacific from about the equator, central part of the Pacific, all the way toward the coast of South America. And this goes back and forth. When it's warmer than normal, we call it an El Nino. When it's colder than normal, we call it a La Nina. And we are in a La Nina pattern for the third consecutive year. But what that typically means for us in the middle Atlantic and even in the Northeast is a winter that is a little drier and a little warmer than the long-term average. So the overall pattern for the winter, we're thinking is probably a little warmer and a little bit drier than average, which suggests less snow. But as we often like to say, Joe, like we say in hurricane season, even if it's not a busy year, it only takes one.
Yes, it only takes one, especially for our area. If you're in Raleigh or Richmond, you can get your seasonal snowfall in one storm. In fact, what is the seasonal average in Richmond, Sean? You're the Richmond guy here.
Yeah, in an average year, which, it's almost never actually average.
Right.
It's about 9 inches.
9 inches.
But, if you get one good coastal storm, that's wiped out.
Right.
But we've had the occasional, and it's rare, but on occasion we can get 2 feet of snow in a winter, but that does not happen very often. Most of the time it's running somewhere between about 5 and 15, with 9 being that long-term average.
Then you're probably jealous of me, Sean, because I had 33.8 inches of snow in 1 month in New Jersey.
Where in Jersey? Was that farther inland? That wasn't at the shore, was it?
It was at Atlantic City International Airport, about 7 miles inland from the coast. We ripped this winter. January, we had 2 big storms, got us up well above our average. Our average is about 17. But, it got us up well above our average. So, great point, Sean. It takes the average for snow is really a finicky thing. You really, I think the number of days it snows in a winter may be a better gauge here. But enough.
Yeah, because you also have these. We also have these little smaller scale, what we're called a mesoscale or microscale features. Like Richmond was in a little bit of a snow hole last winter. There was more snow in Raleigh. There was more snow in DC. There was more snow in Roanoke, and there was more snow in Norfolk last year.
Really?
So Richmond kind of missed out. There were. Oddly enough, the western suburbs of Richmond got appreciably more snow than the eastern suburbs of Richmond, and that's where the airport is. So that's where all the archived observations and the actual records are kept. So yeah, it doesn't take a lot to nudge us one way or the other.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we kind of laid the groundwork for kind of the winter ahead. And by the way, we should plug in our Across the Sky podcast. We did a 2-part winter weather outlook with Dr. Judah Cohen, who is a seasonal forecasting legend. But let's start talking about what we could expect as we go forward in time. We just want to briefly talk about the Thanksgiving weekend, and happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Friday, it's pretty much just a couple of showers that move through the area. It's a light to maybe moderate rain for a few hours during your Black Friday shopping. We'll take you forward in time. Saturday's looking great everywhere. Some clouds over in North Carolina, but really Saturday is going to be a good day. It's a mild day. And then Sean, tell us about this Sunday system we have going on.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you get concerned when you have a larger storm system coming through this time of the year that you're going to have some snow in New York, upstate New York, in western Pennsylvania, in Ohio. But there's going to be a flood of warm air all the way up to New York. So we expect everything that's going to come down Sunday morning and into early Sunday afternoon is just rain all the way into Pennsylvania, New York City, and probably upstate New York as well. Having said that, on the backside of the system, there may be just a touch of some wet snow in the true higher elevations of the Laurels of Pennsylvania. But, if you're one of those people that drives the Pennsylvania Turnpike and between Pittsburgh and Breezewood, you might see a few snowflakes on Sunday. But that would be about it. This looks like mostly just a big old classical rain situation for Sunday morning for Carolina, Virginia, and through Pennsylvania, New Jersey.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, we'll get into the longer term. You're going to see more of this kind of graphic in our videos here. This is a look at our upper level patterns. When you get to what's happening next week or the week after, this kind of gives you an idea of what's happening in the upper levels of the atmosphere, which kind of correlates to what happens down here. So we take you to November 29th. You see a low pressure system here that's dipping into Maine, where you see those warmer colors, that's hotter air aloft or the potential for warmer air aloft, and then vice versa. So the cooler colors, greater potential for, colder air and also some lower pressure. So as we go into the 29th, storm system around that time looks to come through, but we're kind of mild there, and then we'll go forward again. We'll get you into December now. That's the start of climatological winter, our coldest 3 months of the year. Another low pressure system dives in from the Northwest Territories and the Yukon in Canada, but it doesn't fully make a full swipe into our area. New Jersey, Pennsylvania, definitely going to be colder than Richmond in North Carolina. But what's happening here is, and because low pressure spin counterclockwise, what this kind of looks like to me is, generally we are staying on the chillier side, but then once a storm comes through, a lot of these storms are going to stay to the core of that low pressure system is going to stay to our west. That means warmer air kind of comes up the eastern seaboard. So we're we're like cold and dry and then warm and wet here. This is December 2nd. You see both those low pressure systems going away here, going into Newfoundland, Canada, and then you see some milder air starting to assert itself from the south, and looks like we'll be dry as we not only dry but dry and mild from generally that December 3rd to the 6th time frame. And now I'll turn over to you in a second, Sean. But you look to see some cooler colors out towards the northern Rocky Mountains at this time. That's where we're going to start be talking about in the next episode of, hey, can we actually squeeze out some wintry weather from this?
Yeah, we think that's where the first opportunity will be, not so much in the first weekend of December, but as you saw that last little blue intrusion coming into the western United States at the end of that loop. That's going to be the next little pocket that we think has an opportunity to nudge the weather pattern a bit and go into that negative NAO that we were talking about to give us a persistent kind of colder spell and the better opportunity for legit winter storm. Again, we don't see any chance of legit snow at all through at least the first weekend of September. December.
Wow,
December. But yeah, there are some indications that the atmosphere more favorable for cold and possibly some snow after that first weekend in December.
Yeah. So, and we were talking about this in our winter outlook. It does look like if we do get the opportunities for the bigger cold and the bigger snow, it's going to be early in the winter here. And it certainly looks to ramp on up here. So just to recap what we have going on this weekend, your Black Friday weekend, no real appreciable snow to talk about, some systems on Friday and Sunday. Then as we go into next week, a couple of storm systems. One's going to be the early part, again, that's Sunday into kind of Monday. And then something looks to also pass during we'll say the middle of next week, generally as the calendar flips from November to December here. But then we look to be mild as we wrap up next week and then go into the weekend of December 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And then at the end, again, that's when we'll, into the following week, that's when we could be talking about some colder air. So, Sean, we did it. This was our first episode.
Yeah. So, I think the take-home points are that we'll be a little bit cool on occasion for these next 7 to 10 days, but overall, it's going to be a warmer than typical time of year. There'll be a couple little spurts of some rain, but no good chance of snow. So in terms of our snow meter, if you will, or our snow scale, we're probably going to have to wait until after the first weekend in December. But from there, things do look like they might get a little more interesting. And this is for everybody, again, from Carolina all the way up into New Jersey.
Yeah, the snow search will continue. So thanks, everybody, for watching our initial episode here. A little bit long. We'll be a little shorter in the weeks to come. We're going to try to keep it under 10 minutes for you. But we appreciate you watching. You can follow us on our social medias right above our heads here that you see. And we'll chat with you guys next week. We're going to try to do these episodes every Monday as we go throughout the winter. So look for those episodes again every Monday on your favorite local news website. Take care, everybody.
Have a great Thanksgiving.